Hello, my name is Samron Reddy. I'm a member of the Youth Parliament and I'm here with the Lauren Sheriff School Eco Committee. We as young people truly believe that it is our generation and all future generations that will be affected by the long-term effects of climate change. Despite the controversial nature of climate change, events such as this and the numerous strikes taking place around the world show that young people care about our future on this fragile planet and that we are ready to work in unity in order to preserve life on Earth. Today, we will be addressing different aspects of these issues. These are sectioned into different questions. Why climate change? Why is this the biggest issue? Why students? Why are we the ones leading this campaign? Why us and what we can do about it? And why now? I will now pass over to the Lauren Sheriff School Eco Committee.
Climate change is currently one of the biggest threats to the planet and the human race. However, it is a threat which can be addressed through meaningful legislation and changes by the government, but only if we act now. With the average global temperature being only 1.1 degrees above the pre-industrial baseline, we are already seeing devastating extreme weather events. In 2018, such events killed at least 5,000 people and left nearly 30 million people in need of humanitarian aid. The current strategies and government policies for dealing with climate change and its effects are not enough. They are merely attempts to divert attention away from the matter rather than effectively dealing with it. But this does not mean that the challenge is unsurmountable. The school strike showed a desire to make this change, and calling on governments was the correct approach. Since 1988, 71% of global emissions have been produced by 100 companies alone. Stopping this requires legislation and investment in green energy. According to the 2017 Carbon Majors Report, 100 corporations are responsible for over 70% of carbon emissions since the 1980s. While this is allowed to continue, efforts to switch to renewable energy sources and reduce carbon emissions in other areas could effectively be made meaningless. The actions of these corporations mean that temperatures will continue to rise to even more dangerous levels, resulting in more extreme weather events and more deaths as a result, all while governments refuse to directly deal with this issue. If climate change is not controlled, the consequences will be catastrophic. A report published by the United Nations states that by the end of the century, global temperatures will be over 4 degrees higher than pre-industrial times. If this figure is not kept below 1.5 degrees through effective management strategies, up to 150 million people could die prematurely due to the effects of air pollution by the end of the century, something which is completely preventable but likely to happen unless action is taken now. It is clear that we must all strive for a meaningful change in the way the issue is dealt with, by changing the system and creating legislation in a way which holds businesses, individuals and politicians accountable. We can create a future which is not permanently transformed by the forces of climate change, but only if we act before it is too late.
If someone you know or love was having a heart attack, you would have just 12 hours before the damage was irreversible. If you knew that you could save their life and do everything to prevent more suffering in those around them, you would do everything in your power to protect them, would you not? Yet, when it comes to the case of climate change, the deadline that has been set for our world is 12, 19 years even, too late. The clock is ticking, and that is why we students must remind you that the deadline is coming close. We are in a race against death, and yet we've decided we'd rather walk to the finish line and be 19 years too late. When your own children are having to remind you of something this dramatic, it should be a significant wake-up call. I don't want to have to be here in 12 years, listening to you saying, "I'm sorry." We didn't realise what little time we had to change. Because I'm telling you today, we, students, are telling you here today, and if you don't listen, it's going to be the most horrific "I told you so" in history. We smugly named ourselves the wisest, smartest species on the planet. No other species on this planet, however, has been smart enough to devastate their only home. And that is exactly what Earth is to us, our only home. And yet many, many other species are dumb enough to protect their wildlife and people around them that they rely on for the next future generations. Earth is a perfect formation of a planet for us to sustain life on. And yet with our intellect we've managed to bring it to the edge of extinction. If you don't act faster today, we'll be hurled off that ledge to an unforgiving, unchangeable hell, and it'll be all your fault. We students see clearly what we need to do with the world. We recognise these problems, and we recognise that we won't let our children's lives be at stake because of the mistakes of our parents' generation. Us students may only make up 20% of the population, but we make up 100% of this country's future. We're doing our part and more. It's time you join us and do your part too.
Great things are done by a series of small things brought together. Those are some words from Vincent van Gogh, a man who society ignored and mocked, his true merit only realised after it was too late. One of the largest issues facing us when attempting to fight off climate change are the words, "But what difference will that make?" These are words I often hear from the disillusioned and despairing. This, however, is a poisonous mindset. Even the smallest changes can have ripple effects, and this is the concept we're trying to implement here. Trying to make small changes, be it in people's mindsets or literal. Trying to show people that small changes can have a lasting impact. Only when this is understood will we be able to make real change as a united front in the fight against climate change. And the time is now. But what, may you ask, can I do? The Dalai Lama said, just as ripples spread out when a single pebble is dropped into water, the actions of individuals can have far-reaching effects. You can choose to be that pebble in the pond. You can choose to turn off the lights when you leave a room. You can choose to walk rather than use the car. You can choose to reuse your plastic bottles. You can choose to switch your energy to renewable sources. None of these things take much effort, but all of these things can have that lasting rippling effect. But it is true that individuals can only do so much. First, we need all governments and big businesses to do their part. We need to accept the scientific evidence that climate change is real, because it is. Then we need to make the positive change, not just talk about it, as we have been for so many years. Our Eco Committee believes that they will not do so willingly. Maybe they'll feel like it's too much hassle. Maybe it will affect their profits. So what pressure can we put on them to make that change? Are you ready to be that pebble in the pond?
As students, we are told to believe that education is the most important factor affecting our future. However, what we actually believe is different. What is it worth becoming a medic if in 10 years' time climate change has destroyed the very resources we need to make life-saving medicines? What is it worth in becoming a lawyer if in 10 years' time resource deficit has led to social anarchy and brutal wars over the very resources we have left to exploit? What is the point in working tirelessly to achieve our aspirations if by the time we come to the stage of attaining them, they are no longer a viable option? Already we are beginning to experience the consequences of climate change, the impacts that are unnecessary and avoidable. Only 4 months ago, a third of Australia's bat population was wiped out due to a record-breaking heatwave. This is not a future issue. This was 4 months ago. This is happening now. This is not a problem we can leave for the future. This needs vitally addressing. How many more species have to disappear before society faces the facts? Therefore, we propose that instead of taking our voice away and ignoring the crisis, as has been with the previous generations, we will speak and you will hear our warning, because ecologists suggest that if we don't do something, then climate change in the next 12 years will be irreversible, both to our world and our aspirations.
Ultimately, it is down to humanity working together for collective good. Despite the gloom and doom associated with climate change, we have shown that hope is on the horizon. We still have time to make a lasting impact. Through diligence and perseverance, we can achieve our shared goal of a healthy and happy lifestyle on a happy and healthy planet. This is my future.